Yeah. Who gonna help me when I hand out the smoke? New wave watcher come tip over the boat. I never did look at the note, but murder she wrote.
All right, as someone with both a visual art and music career, what are some similarities you've noticed in the creative process? And what are some similarities in the way that people approach and interact with your work?
Creatively, I would say it's similar in terms of it kind of starts off with being willing to let go of I may have an idea of what I want, but if I strive to create exactly what I want to create, it never turns out right. And I notice the same in visual art. It's kind of like you start off on that journey of trying to get what you want, but then you have to be not too married to it and let it kind of evolve and turn into whatever. Because there's times where I've sought out to say, oh, I want to make a love song. And then it may turn into like a grungier kind of a harder kind of darker song. And there's times where I say, I want to make a darker song, and it turns into a love song. And I think the same thing, it kind of happens with visual art for me. Like I think it's like, it's about, one of my mentors would say, getting comfortable being lost. And I kind of feel like the same between music and art. And visual art is kind of the same. And then I think the second part was how people respond. I think people respond. I mean, I think it's pretty similar. I think, well, with music, you can kind of see the people's responses. You can see either they're moving. You can see if they're like bobbing their head, if they're singing along. With visual art, it's more so you don't really know. I guess with music, you can tell if someone's feeling something, if they're moving. You know, you can tell that they're feeling something. Visual art, you don't really know what someone's thinking, but you can tell when someone is engaging with like an artwork. Like they may be double taking, or they may just be standing in front of it kind of, perplexed and trying to understand what they feel. So it's a little different, I think, in how it shows. But overall, I think like I try to create similar conversations between the two.
Do you feel like your music has a sort of overall umbrella message? And if so, do you think that message leaks into other areas like visual art, or even other aspects of your creative practice, like sort of outlying, like Birmingham Museum of Art, or things like that?
Even if each song kind of has a different individual message, there is like an overarching theme with my music. It's more so about, I'm trying to be vulnerable in my music, but I also want to kind of like give people something to grab, like use, like kind of like, I've said before, like I like the sound of ripping my heart out, and like the music is like the sound of me ripping my heart out by giving it someone else to let the heart beat within them. Like I want to kind of like take my personal experience, because that's the only way to make it authentic, but then at the same time try to frame it in a way. I want it to be inspirational overall, whatever, even if it's something like darker, if it's something like a love song, but I have to do it through my personal like experience. And I do definitely see it bleed through in other aspects of my life, because I kind of like, whether it be work-wise or even like personal life and family life, I've learned that I have to be comfortable with being vulnerable and comfortable with being wrong sometimes, and not too married to the idea of like things, like I was saying previously, with things starting out one way and ending up another way, kind of being comfortable with life kind of flowing naturally, and trust that everything's okay. Like we'll always end up okay, as long as you kind of like there's an energetic kind of relationship that happens in life, just like it happens in art. And and I think that's kind of what I learn I learn as like I create. It's just that you kind of have to just let go, learn to let go, and just embrace where you're at, you know.
So, as someone who has collaborated with their 5-year-old son on music, how was that process similar to collaborating with adults?
It's similar, and it's similar in terms of having to learn to listen to like his input, and like have the same kind of respect and regard as you would have for someone who's been making music for many years. I think that there's a little like I kind of had like in working with him, like one thing I had to learn on like early on was I guess realizing the subjectivity of like music, and is like I can't, just because I've been making music longer than him and I may think I know what I'm talking about in terms of something sounding good. I realized like he would give me input and be like, I don't like this. I don't like this beat, or I don't like these sounds. Or he'd want to get involved with making the beat. And really he would be way more in tune than I may have thought on the surface. Like I would be really surprised at, you know, his opinions, and just kind of like if he said he wanted to make something that sounded, he may give me like a reference. He may be like, I want to make something that sounds, angry, and he would pick out sounds that kind of fit that, and then I would just I kind of had to learn to let him kind of lead the ship and do the dressing up. So a lot of all the songs we kind of collaborated on, it would usually start out where it would be like, I may have some of the beat done and I would show it to him. He may not like it, or he may, and I would kind of tweak it after his input. And then I would just loop him for like 10 to 15 minutes on a track and just let him say whatever. And then I would like kind of take parts from that and piece it together into a song and a theme. And then I would like go off of that and be like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of try to like, you know, tie the loose ends together and make a verse or a hook or whatever that encompasses what he's already saying. Or sometimes he may say something that sounds like the hook already. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of collaborating with him versus someone, you know, older, but he's really a lot more creative and free. Like a lot of his ideas would just be not bound. I mean, he's a kid, so they would just not be bound by anything other than just a raw emotion or feeling. So eventually it just I really learned to respect it and just embrace it, and kind of just, all right, I have to roll with this and give the same kind of effort that I would give like if I was recording a track with a Grammy nominated artist. Like I have to put forth the same amount of effort, just out of respect, and also realizing how, you know, in tune he is, you know, with like a kid personality.
How often do you perform live? And would you prefer to perform more or less?
I would prefer to perform more. I haven't performed. I mean, I probably perform. Well, it's kind of. I guess before the pandemic. I probably performed, you know, 4 or 5 times a year, maybe. Since the pandemic, I mean, I've done, you know, some virtual stuff during the pandemic. And I've performed like maybe 3 or 4 times since the pandemic over the span of the last 3 years. So I would definitely prefer to perform more.
What is the longest you ever spent working on a song? What's the shortest you ever spent working on a song? And how do you know when a song is finished?
Longest I've ever worked on a song. I mean, usually what I'll do, so like my process would be, within a day or a session, I'll get something down. Sometimes that session could be completely done. I'll call it done. But a lot of times I'll go back periodically and revisit. So on my computer, I have tons of songs that are incomplete that I haven't touched in years, or I'll go back maybe every so often and add something. So it's hard to know. I guess recently I just put out a project recently, which was a collection of old songs. It was songs that I had sitting around. I was like, I need to put these out. And I kind of went back on a few songs and added other elements with a fresher perspective. So yeah, I mean, I say longest song could be 5 years. Shortest song could be 30 minutes to an hour, just really depending on how the vibe is.
What is the most difficult musical technique that you have learned? How did you learn it, and how regularly do you use it?
I would say the most difficult technique that I still don't really feel confident about is definitely mixing and engineering. I think there's just so many. I mean, I understand the basics of like EQ or compression and what it's supposed to do, but in terms of sonically being able to like hear and engineer something, like I can get something to where I think it sounds decent, but I don't. There's just a lot of pieces to it in a lot of ways, and when I meet other people who've been engineering and they share different things, it completely blows my mind. And where I'm like, why do I even try this? And I would say the same as with production as well. Like, there's a lot of different methods. I would say if I had to say the hardest, I mean, there's just everything is hard and it's complex. I think a lot of my style on doing stuff, especially production, is like unorthodox. Like I kind of I'm like a lot of the beats I make are very sometimes it's accidental. Sometimes it's like if I'll take a sample of something and completely tweak it to where it's unrecognizable, and then like slice it on the transient markers and then upload that to a like keyboard and then like play out something. So really, like there's really everything. I think I kind of get intimidated when I learn about the right way you're supposed to do stuff, or I learn like, oh, you're supposed to like do this like this or engineer like this, or, you're supposed to, this is how you're supposed to produce. And I kind of just do what works for me, what I understand. And then kind of like, if I collaborate with someone, let them handle that world of things. And, I'll soak in things, but I don't like to, I've learned to kind of like maybe there's some beauty in the chaos sometimes, So I kind of just do what works for me, but at the same time, when I learn stuff, or when I try to be open-minded to learning things, but also being completely cool with like outsourcing and being like, okay, well, you're an engineer, you're a way better engineer than me, so can you mix, or you produce better than me in this style. So instead of me trying to learn how to like do that on my own and like try to make something that imitates your style, I much rather, you do it and I'll work with you in your lane, and kind of, if that makes any sense. Like I kind of just, yeah, like someone told me a long time ago, I was like really stuck on trying to take music theory classes, and I still do want to take music theory. But early on, they were like, as you're like starting to learn, it's better to kind of like if you have your own. It's like a painting or something. When someone has a very unique style, like Basquiat, like no one could have taught him in art school how to paint exactly like that. So that's how I kind of think about music. But I think now that I'm at the point where I've kind of developed like my style, it would be good to take like music theory or like some more formal education to really learn how to dress everything up the right way.
Where do you typically rehearse? And what's your favorite aspect of rehearsal space? And how would you improve it if you could?
I rehearse at the house most of the time, or like in the car while I'm driving. And I mean, it could use a lot of improvements from. It would be great if I could rehearse with, like a sound system, and having more space. I think would be great. I mean, I just kind of go in my basement and put the songs on loop and just keep going, or I'll drive in the car, make a playlist, and just keep rehearsing and rehearsing until I think I got it down. But also too, I think like doing it in front of people more often would be better if I can have people there to watch me and critique me.
How does a musician, quote unquote, make it? And what steps are involved in making it in a practical sense? And what about a philosophical sense or a monetary sense? And is there anything that ties those to make a cohesion, or are those separate aspects?
Yeah, that's a great question. You have to figure out what making it is to you. I think when people say make it, a lot of times it's like the glitz and the glamour of Hollywood. I gotta be super famous, and I don't know if that's what you want. You can go that way, but there's also a lot of factors that go into getting to that level, in relationships and, quite frankly, like luck and chance. I think making it is more so about, making a living for yourself off of your art. Which I think when you scale it down, when you kind of like look at it as, when you take the goal down and look at it as like step-by-step things you can take or you can do in order to get there, it becomes a lot less intimidating. So I think that's the first thing you kind of have to do holistically too, and like take that in every part of your life. So monetarily, you definitely, for one, are going to have to, whether it's equipment, studio time, promoting yourself as an artist, it costs money. So you're going to need some kind of job or something that allows you to invest in yourself. And I think the best kind of jobs for a musician would be something flexible, like where your schedule isn't so strict, like working at a restaurant, or if you can do some kind of call-in, some kind of like call-in job, or something where you don't have to be in the office or at the job every single day from 9 to 5, because you may have a show or you may have something to come up. And using that to kind of, using the money you get from that to invest in yourself. And even before you do all that, I think you have to educate yourself on the business side, like understanding distribution, understanding PROs, and understanding how to promote your music. So I think you definitely have to kind of like you have to pull down the veil behind the music industry and what it is, because at the end of the day, it's a music business, and it's all and how does a business succeed? You got to have customers. So in this case, it's people listening to your music. So you kind of have to ask yourself, what kind of artist do you want to be? Do you want to be, if you want to be a super mega famous artist, you got to get tons and tons of people listening to your music, which also equates to tons and tons of money that you have to put into your music in order to get those results. So then start kind of thinking about how you can get that kind of money to invest in your music. And also too, and this is all, and make sure you have good music or decent music. So you also have to put time into your craft to find your sound and learn and go out to shows and get connected in your local scene and meet other artists and bounce ideas. So overall, I think you just, like, I guess spiritually, I think that, like, what kind of cohesively will connect it all is just really wanting to do it outside of, really wanting to do it for the strict love of music. Like, you forget the money, forget all of that. Like, you have to really just love making music. And then once you just go on that journey and fully commit to that, then, the pieces of the puzzle will reveal themselves, and there will constantly be new things you need to learn or things you have to do in order to be on top of your game. So, and I'm sure you can relate to some of that too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, CAREY, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Touch me if you ever want beef, put it all out in the front street. And I got no time for you dummies. I'm trying to get bread like a lunch meat. I don't like to hold on the money, just won't let you come take it from me. I tell her the truth if she want me.